Welcome, everybody, for guests and visitors. My name is Teresa Russell, and I am the current president for the Dublin-Worthington Rotary Club. And this is our 36th meeting of our 49th year. We're closing in on 50. Today's invocation and pledge will be offered by Wynn Wixel.
Let us pray. Oh God, we come together as Rotarians, mindful of the blessings that we've had here today. We thank you for life. Help us be connected in a global way. Help us understand national and international tensions, how we as individuals can influence that even beyond the voting. Help us be mindful that this planet is one of a kind, probably not the only in the universe, but very special. Help us with our neighbors, those who are not given the things that I seem to find special. Help us to be in touch with your thoughts. Thank you for the food today. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Wynn. And we have a visiting guest with us today. Jim Miller, would you, besides the speaker, would you like to introduce our guest?
Yes. Nice to meet you. Yes, I'd like to introduce Peter Oakley. Peter, I know through the Presbyterian Church USA and this presbytery because he is working on a project in welcoming refugees to individual churches and helping those churches be able to integrate them into the different areas. So, Peter. I will introduce our speaker at a later.
Thank you. Any announcements? Make your way up. I know Peggy's got one.
Hey, everybody, this is the last day that I'll be passing the hat around to make collections for this year's Kick Cancer. I don't know if some of the new people are here today, but this is an endowment that our district and clubs has made with the James Cancer Research Center. And in July, I'll get a report on what our money was used for this year, and I'll report that in right after I get my report from the James. But this is our last day to collect today. But if you don't have a checkbook and you'd like to donate to Kick Cancer, Jennifer said that if you let her know, she'll just put it on your bill. So thanks, Jen.
Thank you, Peggy. Any other announcements? Okay.
There's a PS. Yes, from your sermon.
Help me, Lord. The NGSE, we're still looking at particular dates, but the Romanians are coming here and will be in the charge of our club about July 1st through the 5th or 4th. So next week or so, we'll start looking for people who would like to chaperone or host these Romanians. They're a feisty, neat group. They all speak English. And during that week, we'd like some help in that kind of activity. And so starting next, think about it. Maybe come back when you talk with your partner or whoever you're involved or whatever, and simply like to host somebody for a night or whatever. Thank you.
Say the dates again.
July first. They haven't confirmed it out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Would you like to?
A couple announcements. Our Impact Club is gonna meet for a social next Wednesday, April 17th at 5:30 PM at Zaptic Brewery. I think we've had some club socials there, Robert was there before. So if you're interested in joining, please come, bring a friend. We had a great turnout last time, almost 20 or 25 people at the Noctera social, so it's a good time. We also have a raffle. Can you imagine that, be up here talking about raffle? We have, maybe sold like $14,000 worth of tickets, so we're doing really good. But, we definitely need to get the word out. We've got maybe 45 days until it, completes on May 15th. Probably haven't seen a ticket sold in the last 4 days, so we really need to get the word out. If you need flyers, I believe we've got some here back at the cashier's desk. And if you need help buying your tickets, please reach out to me. Thanks.
Some of you already get the newsletter from the Worthington Pantry. And if you did and you read it, but for the rest of you who didn't, just to solidify why we do these food drives. We did a food drive in March. And Nick reports that in March, they served 2,622 families. Wow. Over 2,500 families in our community, the Worthington community, not the Dublin community does their own. So that is 23% more than they did a year ago. Almost 2,000 more neighbors than they served the previous month, previous March. So we can see we're not fixing this hunger by any means, but of course we didn't expect to fix it. We just expected to make it a little bit better for as many neighbors as we could. So of those that were served, 1,200 neighbors were brand new to the pantry. Things gotta get better. I didn't want to be such a downer. I'm not a downer kind of a guy, sorry. Kip Patterson, a faithful volunteer.
Long time.
And unusual for me to be quoting somebody like Richard Nixon. Which remember, he said, "You won't have me to kick around much longer." Well, we are moving to Indiana shortly.
All right, I'll go.
What? Here, I'll get a break.
Any other announcements? All right, we have a sergeant today, Miss Connie.
Whoa.
Move my stuff around. And yes, John, would you carry the
Yes, John.
Yes, John. And I'm going to, oh, go grab it. I'm going to put $1 in, just a happy $1, just glad to be back. It's been a while, I've been gone. So I came back to this beautiful weather, couldn't stand it. So, let me pull my stuff up here and, yeah. How is everybody? Yay. Yay, well, we're gonna
Sweet stuff before the kill, is that what they?
be good, be nice. You should have seen Jim Miller. He was like the nicest thing when he found out I was sergeant today. Put $1 in, Jim. So sweet. Any other happy dollars? Yes. Don.
I have 2 of them.
first is that we had an eclipse that we caused, and we, were able to travel the Lafayette Net and see it in totality for over 3 minutes, which was way too long. And the second is because since we had an eclipse, I had family members come from New Jersey to do it with us, so got 2 reasons to put in a happy dollar in it.
Sounds like fun. Peggy?
Our grandson is in the first lieutenant in the Air Force in Cheyenne was named, Air Force Officer of the Year, so.
Oh, congratulations. He's a good kid. He really is. Jerry?
I'm putting in my kindness dollar. I gave away 7 eclipse glasses to neighbors and strangers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, why did you give them yesterday? Oh, it's the recycle.
Yes, Steve.
I got a kindness dollar. So, yesterday, my company sponsored a contest where 15 students across the state came and competed against each other for a technical contest. We have a speaker here called Skills USA that facilitates it, but it's the second largest, use of the convention center. They've got kids from all over doing construction, culinary, photography, and so our 15 kids came and they did things like troubleshooting hardware, fixing networks, we had a great time, so.
Thank you.
Well, I too had, family in from Virginia and Delaware, and we had 23 family members in Delaware, or, excuse me, in Richwood, Ohio at our farm. And it just was a wonderful event. I'm also going to add another dollar because I forgot to mention that Peter is actually a member of Tom's church, and that's part of the reason I know.
Well, Tom was getting ready to find you, so it's good that you stepped up for that. Any other happy dollars? Birthdays? And some of you look older. Anniversaries? No, okay. How about those badges and pins? Does everybody have them on? There we go. Well, it is good to be back, and I will, do my usual thing. I have a mystery Rotarian. And, again, it's really important that you talk to the Rotarian that sits beside you or greet you or, have a conversation, learn a little bit about them, and some of you will get some of these. I've had a couple that did get guessed. And I need for those that did guess, make sure you get your free lunch. So it's on me, so if you did, go for it. This person, I asked the same questions. And if you guess and you're wrong, it's $1. And if you don't guess, it's $1. But you might as well try to figure out who this is. My first question is always to this Rotarian is, what was your first job? And this person said, after spending 2 years delivering both the morning and afternoon newspapers, my first paycheck job was at Sandy's Drive-In. There you go, Sandy's. Guesses? Guesses?
George.
Everybody put your dollar in, so you can guess anyway. It's no one yours. My next question is, what was the riskiest thing you ever did? This Rotarian said, while rafting on a scouting trip, I fell out of a flat bottom boat and thought I was going to die.
Dave Kidder.
Yeah.
Dave, is it you? Are you it? You better put $1 in too, because you didn't guess either. No,
Is the person here?
I'm not gonna tell you.
Oh.
I'm not gonna tell you that. You should know your fellow Rotarians by now. No, get your dollar out, Jen. Is it not, Jen? No. Okay, next question. What was the most trouble you ever got into? While smuggling about 40 quarts of Strub's pickles from Canada in my truck for friends and family, I was forced out of line to have my car searched. That must be a really pickle. Does everybody know what that is?
No.
You're guessing?
Ryan, here's your culprit.
No, it's not.
Well, it should have been.
Did you smuggle pickles?
No, I didn't.
That's not the correct criterion. Get your dollars out. And again, $3 max, so if you're maxed out, don't worry. But the last question, and this is my favorite question, is when did you know you were a true Rotarian? This person, I love this answer. When they spent $1,000 for a Paul Harris Fellowship in the name of someone else, their mother. So, who do you know that received a Paul Harris Fellowship for the mother?
Is it Alan Grossman?
How about Al Zink?
No, no.
Mike Moulton,
Pardon?
Bonnie.
No,
Mike Moulton.
no.
Very cat.
We wanna just go down the list. Why don't we just do that? You guys, come on. Okay, I just thought this was funny because when I asked this person to do this, he thought that he had a boring life. And he had to consult with his wife to get the answers to a couple of them because he just couldn't think of things.
The pickle thing alone would be.
No, try, with the real secret Rotarian, please stand up. Now, can you imagine Charlie Vesey having a boring life? Isn't it funny what someone considers their life to have been? But thank you for Charlie for, working with me and, unless anybody else has anything, that's all I have.
Well, we want the rest of the story from Charlie.
Oh my gosh, I was almost afraid to ask him some of these. Yeah, what about the pickles? What's so special about those pickles?
My brother and a friend of mine from Canada loves them.
So they're obviously not sold here.
No.
Well, then I'm gonna go back.
They let you go through, right?
Because smuggling is an exaggeration word.
And again, what was it you tried to smuggle and won't share with us? Don't ignore me.
don't mind?
I'm talking to you,
Bill.
Mr. Dees.
I'm a fellow sergeant.
Well, I appreciate all your time.
All right, Tim Miller, it's you.
I am delighted today to introduce our guest speaker, Flannery Rokeby Jackson. Flannery is a graduate of Davidson University with her BA and BS in economics and Arab studies. She's been involved with refugees since studying in the university and then going to Amman, Jordan in 2016. And she's been working at Chris since 2020. She came there during the pandemic and during one of the most challenging times for that. And she is the volunteer coordinator and coordinates community the resources as a community development. She's connected with many community members and organizations that service the needs of new refugees in our community, and has a great deal to say about what the different individuals can do to help out with many of the refugee crises that we face in this community.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing today?
How are you?
Thank you, Jim, for that wonderful introduction. I feel like I'm behind this. I'm gonna move it a little bit.
You can remove it, but hold it close.
I'm pretty good at projecting too. I did theater in high school, so, again, thank you for having me, and I appreciate the lunch. Working for nonprofits is not the most glamorous job, so I appreciate free lunch whenever I can get it. But I do really love my job, that's why I do it. So I'm happy to sort of talk about what we do at Community Refugee and Immigration Services, why we do what we do, and I'm happy to answer any questions as we go along. I know we'll have like a Q&A time at the end, but if there's any burning questions as we go through, please don't hesitate to ask. So at Chris, we have several different programs all surrounding working toward our mission, which is helping refugees and immigrants find safety and stability, working towards self-sufficiency, and eventually achieving successful integration into the Central Ohio community. So that means something completely different for every single individual who comes to the US as a refugee. So that's why we have so many different programs. All of them go through our resettlement program. We have ESL classes, employment programs, legal services, and then programs that are specific to somebody's situation. So just so that we all know who we're talking about, all of our clients fall under the general immigrant definition. So an immigrant is anyone who is not a citizen or national of the United States who currently lives here. And they can all, if an immigrant definition is a wide definition that it's what we call umbrella. And so somebody who is here as on a work visa or a student visa or a refugee, or maybe they're a lawful permanent resident, they have a green card, those are all immigrants. But specifically who we work with are refugees. So a refugee is someone who has had to flee his or her home country based on persecution or fleeing war, and that persecution has to be based on one of the 5 protected grounds as decided by the United Nations High Commissioner of Refugees. So that could be race, religion, nationality, membership of a social group, or political opinion. There are many people who apply for refugee status through the UNHCR, and there are many who are denied. So it is not an easy thing to become a refugee. Oftentimes we use the term refugee to describe anyone who may be fleeing a difficult situation, but in terms of what we do and our programs, it's very specific. So right now, and these are actually already out-of-date figures, these are from mid-2023, there are 110 million forcibly displaced people in the world. Most of them are considered to be internally displaced, so that means that they are still within the borders of their home country, but they've had to flee their homes because of war, violence, persecution, and more often every year we see climate disaster as well. Second largest group are refugees. Third largest are asylum seekers. A lot of people also get a little bit confused about asylum seekers versus refugees. And I can't get into all of the nuances because I took what usually is a 2-hour training, shrunk it down to about 20 minutes. But asylum seekers are often fleeing exactly the same things, but instead of going through the United Nations to receive refugee status, they're going through a country's government to receive asylum. So a lot of times we think of people at different ports of entry who are arriving in the United States and then declaring that they're seeking asylum, again, based on violence or war or persecution. And then the United Nations has created this very convenient catch-all category because there are so many people who are in between these statuses and don't fall into any of them right now. So they made this other people who are in need of international protection. I have to say, since starting at CRIS, this number, 110 million, has gone up from, I think it was 73 million when I started in September of 2020. So it's gone up significantly. Within this group, about 40% of displaced people are children. They're under the age of 18. And most of them are held in developing countries or hosted in developing countries. And I'll talk about what that means in the next slide. So a refugee's journey starts out as soon as they flee their home country. So that's the first step. So that's the first step. I told you, I'm used to this. They start out, they flee their home country, and then they have to register with the United Nations in whatever country they flee to. So oftentimes we see refugees are fleeing directly to countries that are next door. I know a lot of us are familiar with the Syrian refugee crisis. What were some host countries that we thought of for Syrian refugees?
Turkey.
Jordan?
Hungary.
Hungary? There's another one I'm looking for too.
Iraq.
There were some in Iraq. Lebanon was the other one I was thinking of, but yes, you're all right. So those are all host countries, and especially when we're thinking of places like Jordan and Lebanon, there are some benefits to being there, right? Because they speak Arabic and they have similar cultures. But I'm gonna return back to some of the disadvantages as well. So while somebody is living in this life in limbo, as we call it, registering with UNHCR in their host country, they can be here for a minimum of 6 months, we've seen, to a maximum of 25 years plus and counting. The refugee's journey is extraordinarily long, and there's no way for me to create PowerPoint slides to really show how long and complicated it is. So I want you all to keep that in mind. So from somebody's host country, there are 3 essential pathways. The first and often ideal pathway is repatriation. So that is when the cause of violence or persecution in somebody's host country is gone and they're able to safely return home. And you can imagine that there are so many people who are hoping for that to eventually be the case. Unfortunately, for most people in the world right now, that will not be possible within 1 generation of fleeing a country. Even if a war ends, we know that there are lasting consequences, lasting violence, destruction of infrastructure, etc. So most people may hang out in this host country life in limbo stage, hoping that repatriation becomes possible. We're seeing that right now with Ukrainian refugees in Poland. They're waiting and hoping for that war to end so they're able to return to Ukraine. The second option is integration into a host country. So this is where most refugees are. So like I said, we see Syrian refugees in Jordan, Lebanon, Turkey. So many of them have decided to stay in those countries and build their lives there. Could be a little bit easier because in Jordan, they speak the same language. It's also a majority Muslim country. But like I said in the slide before, most refugees are hosted in developing countries. And that may mean that those countries do not have the resources to support large numbers of refugees coming in. Lebanon, for example, which is why I was looking for that answer, is experiencing its own economic collapse right now and violence within the country. So integration there may not be a good option. But if that is, that's the end of the refugee journey. They stay in their host country. But what we'll be talking about today, what we do at CRIS is resettlement in a third country. That process looks different depending on what that third country may be. And I like to note that that third option is only available to less than 1% of the world's refugees every year. So going back to that, I think it's 35.3 million refugees every year less than 1% are able to go through the process of being resettled in their country.
So there's the host country and then there's the third country.
Yes, there are many steps. So everybody has to go through a host country and then they may be able to go to a third country, depending on their situation. So there are so many reasons why we, the United States, participate in refugee resettlements, and I think the obvious one is the humanitarian benefit. We are saving the lives of vulnerable people. The United States was founded on people finding safety from persecution, so we're continuing that tradition of welcome. But aside from that, there are so many other reasons we do so as well. Refugee resettlement is actually extraordinarily important in foreign policy. A large part of our refugee program revolves around the fact that we need people to work with us in foreign countries, and oftentimes that work can mean that they become a target of violence. So for example, the countless interpreters and translators in Iraq and Afghanistan put their lives on the line to help the US military, and in return, the United States promises them resettlements and safety for their family. So that's super important, but also cooperation between countries as we resettle people. Our role in refugee resettlement plays a role in that. And then the economic contributions of refugees cannot be understated. We actually just had a new report come out at the beginning of March or mid-March that goes through the national economic contributions of refugees. And I'll summarize the 37-page report, but basically refugees are more likely to be in the labor force and to be employed than the general US population. And they are also more likely to be job creators than US citizens. So this is very small, I'm sorry. But this is a very basic overview of how people get to the United States, and I'll walk you through it so you don't have to read anything. But the first step is identification as a good candidate for a third country resettlement in the United States. And then they go through a series of interviews. I always like to say that refugees are probably the most vetted people in the entire world, maybe outside of CIA agents, because they have to go through a vetting process in order to receive refugee status, and then another process in order to get to the United States. Again, this system looks pretty quick. This usually takes about 5 years, and these interviews take place over months. So it's not a one-time 30-minute interview, it's really a series of interviews, document checking, et cetera. So they go through these interviews, they can be denied at any point. If they're approved, they go through medical examinations, they go through a cultural orientation, and then they get on a plane to come to the United States. Does anybody here know how or who purchases plane tickets for refugees?
Red Cross.
Red Cross. They may have in the past in specific situations, but what normally happens through the refugee program that we have is that the federal government will take a loan out in the family's name, and the family will be expected to start paying back that loan after about 6 months in the United States. So you can imagine for a family of 6 or 7 people coming from a country like Afghanistan, that's already about $10,000 you need to start thinking about paying back, and it will affect somebody's credit. It's usually one of the first things our clients ask our staff about, even while we're still at the airport picking them up, is, okay, how do I start paying back my travel loan? So when they arrive at an airport, an agency like Chris will pick them up, and then that's where the fun begins. So we usually know a family is coming to us about 2 to 4 weeks before they arrive. They are sent to us through our national agency, which is Turk World Service, and Turk World Service has a contract with the State Department. So this is all going through the refugee program, which is a part of our government, a part of the State Department. So we usually know they're coming to us about 2 to 4 weeks before they arrive, although more recently, we have seen as little as 48, 72-hour notice. So that's when we really have to pick up our heels and get going. So our housing team does what I think is probably the hardest job at Chris right now, which is try to find affordable housing for our clients. Affordable and safe, and ideally on a bus route, because they will not have access to a car for a while. So while they work on that, we get everything prepared for them. We meet them at the airport, we take them home, we make sure they have a hot and ready welcome meal, usually from an international restaurant around here. We make sure that they have everything set up in their apartment, so we get donated furniture. We ideally get donated, we call them welcome kit items, which is everything you may have sent your kids off to college with. So that's plates, bowls, shampoo, towels, everything like that. So that when they get to their new home, they do not have to worry about any of that. They go through a series of orientations. We are able to apply for public assistance. So refugees are able to apply for Medicaid, food stamps, cash assistance programs. Although they're usually only in those programs for 6 to 7 months. We apply for social security cards. We refer them to our ESL program, try to get them employed as soon as possible. We get the kids enrolled in school, they do health screenings. We do a cultural orientation class at Chris, so that class goes through everything from what are taxes and when do I pay them, to where are we in the United States, to what to do if a police officer stops you. And then we spend all of their R&D money that we get through the State Department at the end of their first 90 days. That is a one-time grant that we receive that the refugee family is not required to pay back. It's equal to $1,325 per family member. So it's not a ton of money, and about 95% of that will go towards rent, sometimes even before the family arrives. Any questions? I'm going through a lot quickly.
Isn't language a pretty, if I meet them, they don't speak English.
I'm gonna get there. So give me a minute, we'll get there, for sure. Absolutely, language is the #1 challenge. We'll talk about it.
When you set up the housing, that is a rental situation, so it's, okay.
That is always rental. Ideally, you will get a 1-year lease so that they don't have to worry about finding new housing for at least the first 6 months. But especially in the housing situation we have in Columbus right now, we've had to do month to month, which is generally way more expensive, or 6-month leases. And it can get even more complicated. Yeah. Yes.
Do many of them have relatives here to assist them, or if not, is there a community here in Columbus that works with them?
That's a great question. So we do, I would say about 50% of our clients come with what we call a US tie. And that means that they may have a family member or a friend in the Columbus area who is able and willing to help them resettle. That doesn't always mean that they are able to help a lot, because it could mean that they came 6 months before. So they're still working on establishing themselves. But we do try to get refugees coming from certain communities where we have a network here already. So that's why we will continue to get refugees from Somalia, because we have that existing community. We're growing a community from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and we have that capacity on staff, the language capacity, also a growing network. So that is why our national agency will continue to send us refugees from those specific places, because they have a community here.
Are there other criteria on which the national agency uses to assign to you?
I think there are a lot. I don't know about all of them. Some of it is housing related, and we've seen that more recently is, do we have housing available for a family of 10? We don't really have that in Columbus as much. Well, we did. I can tell you, we've moved many refugee families into frat houses around OSU's campus. But we've kind of saturated that already, so we don't really have the capacity to resettle families of 10 right now. So in that case, the national agency may decide to send them elsewhere and send us a family of 4 instead, if that makes sense. And then I think there are a lot of other things that go into it that it's way above my pay grade. Those are great questions.
So how many people are here in Franklin County in this resettlement program?
I don't know about since Chris began, because that would go back to 2001 when we became a resettlement agency. Last year, we resettled 735 people. This year will be about the same. So, usually they're involved in Chris for about a year. So that's usually how many more involved through our resettlement program. So this is what the general breakdown looks like of people who came to us last year. So we have clients continuing to come from Afghanistan. We had a huge boom of Afghan clients come in after the fall of Kabul in 2021. We have a lot of clients coming from the Democratic Republic of Congo and Somalia. We had a number of clients coming in from Syria, and I think that so clearly shows the timeline of what we're talking about, because these clients fled Syria in 2012, 2013. So they're just now getting here. Yes?
So were those Syrians Yazidis or Kurds, or what was the?
They're generally just
general
Syrian.
population?
They're Arab Syrians who fled to Egypt or Turkey in 2012, 2013 during the civil war. Yeah. We have resettled a couple of Kurdish families, but they mostly came from Iraq. Yeah. And then we also have families coming from all over, or individuals. So we have clients coming from Senegal and Sierra Leone, coming from different countries in South America. We have Ukrainian refugees, but more often they're not technically refugees yet. They're here as humanitarian parolees. Again, I don't have the time to go through all the specifics about that, but they have a separate program that's specific to them outside of the resettlement program. That is the exact same situation as the Haitian humanitarian parolees that we're hearing about these days. They're coming here, they are given asylum and temporary protective status here absolutely legally. But they did not come through the resettlement program. They came through a separate program. If you have more questions about that, I can try to answer them. Okay.
Do churches participate with you in taking people in?
Absolutely. We all know that faith communities have had a very long tradition of being involved in refugee resettlement. My grandfather in Canada hosted refugees through his church. And so we generally work a lot with different faith communities to help co-sponsor families or do donation drives, things like that. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. All right, so there are so many challenges refugees face locally, but another interactive part. What do you think some of those challenges may be?
Getting a job,
Employment, language,
The bank.
figuring out the bank. I don't even know how to use my bank properly.
we have a lot of bankers here, so you can talk to them later.
Great, we'll talk after.
Sell for.
Right, everything that they've been through, feeling the opposite of empowered. Absolutely.
Isolation,
Isolation,
Cultural integration.
cultural integration, prejudice. Definitely. So I think you all touched on a lot that we have up here. Like I said, in my 2-hour training, we go through all of the nuances of all of these. I won't make you sit through that. But like you mentioned, learning the language is the #1 challenge that all of our clients face, or about 99%. We do have, especially Afghan clients who come who are interpreters for the US military, and they're able to successfully integrate so quickly into the community. They're able to find employment, get to know their neighbors. So it is a stark difference between those who speak English and those who don't. We all know that kids learn English a lot faster than adults, and so we often see children end up being the sole translators for their parents. And that's not always the best situation, especially if they get in trouble at school and they're the ones translating about why they're in trouble. I had a client who, their kid got suspended from school for 2 weeks. The teacher told the parents he was translating, and he was telling his parents that he was such a good student, he got 2 weeks of vacation. So there are so many reasons why you don't want your children interpreting, for you. We also see that a lot of times husbands, because they're out in the workplace, will learn English a lot faster than wives who may be at home taking care of children. And that can be really difficult while there's already so much stress within a family and within a household. Like I mentioned, housing is very hard. It's hard to find affordable housing for anyone in Columbus, but especially our clients who don't have proof of income, may not have a credit score or any kind of rental history, and are unfamiliar with the way that you apply for housing, put in maintenance requests. Everything is through an online portal now, which is hard for even me to navigate. It can be extra hard for our clients. Food insecurity, you all mentioned earlier that we are seeing more food insecurity as a larger problem for anyone on a limited income in the United States at this point, and that includes our clients. I've actually sent clients to the Worthington Resource Pantry many times, so they were probably in that number of people. Also, because they are coming from cultures where produce is cheap and processed food is expensive. When they get here, it's completely the opposite. So trying to budget in that new food economy can be really difficult. Like I mentioned, most of our clients will not have a car or a driver's license for at least a year after they get here. So they rely on CODA, which is okay. It's not great. It is not super reliable. I have lots of clients who their shift ends at 10:30 and the last CODA bus is at 10:15. And so they have no way of getting home. The kids get enrolled in school pretty quickly usually. And like I said, they're able to learn English a lot faster. But we have kids who are coming who were in college prep school for 10 years and were displaced. And then kids who were born in a refugee camp who've never been to formal schooling before. So the different needs of those kids, a large variety of needs, and thankfully we have a lot of awesome programs here in Columbus and Dublin City schools, but it can be hard to access those if you don't know what you're looking for. Navigating the healthcare system can be difficult. Thankfully, doctors' offices have translation services, but pharmacies don't. So we all know, those of us who may regularly go get pills, the pharmacist has you sign off and asks you if you have any questions, but if there's no translation service there, you're not able to ask those questions. So it can be really difficult. It can lead to people taking their medication incorrectly, really hard. Employment, we have clients who come to us who are doctors, lawyers, and engineers in our home country. They get here and they have to work at the Amazon warehouse in third shift. That's the only thing that's available to them. That can be really hard emotionally. We talk about self-worth. And also physically, if you're now doing manual labor. And that leads to so much trauma. There's trauma in fleeing, there's trauma in displacement, and there's so much trauma in resettlement. When you get here and you're expected to start supporting your family immediately. And we work with people who have different traumas, people who are single mothers or have disabilities or are part of a marginalized community. So that can be more difficult.
So do they, are those expectations set for them when they get into the program? In other words, that you're probably not gonna find a job as an engineer initially or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a conversation that we have with people pretty quickly. After their arrival, doesn't mean that it's always an easy conversation to have.
Oh, but before their arrival, when they enter the refugee program, they're not told these things? No?
Sometimes they are. it's hard for us to control what's being communicated in refugee camps and overseas. So there's misinformation definitely circulating. That all said, refugees are full of success stories. They are more than twice as likely to own a business. We have clients who become citizens and voters and homeowners, elected officials once they become citizens. So refugee resettlement is full of success stories. So I'm gonna really quickly go through ways you can support refugees. Know that refugees are able to be employed immediately upon arrival if you hire people or know people who hire people, just sharing that information. You can donate Rotary cards, welcome kit items, furniture to Chris. You can donate directly to our clients who are facing emergency situations through neighbor relief. And then socially, you can always volunteer, Chris. I'm not here to ask you to do that. But like I said, there are churches who end up being co-sponsors or welcome teams to help a specific family. I'd be happy to talk with you about what that looks like. You could do individual volunteering. I encourage you all to get to know, I think you all are the right people, get to know different cultures. We have such a diverse community here, and they have awesome cultural days and festivals. Just getting to know and appreciating those cultures is a big step in supporting refugees. And if you don't want to hear me talk about refugees, if you want to hear somebody who's actually experienced that, you can hire a refugee through the Refugee Speakers Bureau to talk about their own experiences. Okay, sorry, I had to really race through those last couple slides, but are there any questions? Yeah.
I just wanted to mention, our church was a welcome team with Chris and a family from Afghanistan, and it's been a great experience.
Yes, you all are one of the star welcome teams for sure. While usually it's just 6-month commitments, like you probably know, those relationships and friendships often last a lot longer than that.
How do you set up a welcome team?
You would talk to our welcome team coordinator, who, her name is Teresa, I work directly with her, and she helps you navigate what putting together that team may look like, the training, and then actually pairing you with the family.
So do clubs like ours do that?
I don't think I've had a Rotary club do it, but I have had like a Kiwanis club did, a welcome team. We have communities, we have neighborhood groups, so really anyone can do it.
Thank you.
Okay.
That was great information, and on her name, Teresa Gibson, is on the screen. Okay, Charlie, we have a raffle.
We do. I got a brand new $20 bill here for some lucky person. And I know George really wants it. Maybe Wynn can pull George's ticket. Last four, 6537. That's you, George? Oh,
You brought a lot of things.
Hey, Charlie.
Oh, okay, Jim.
Charlie, you mentioned kicking some tickets under the table next time when you get Jim set up.
And then the ace of spades, $260. Jim, would you like to pull that? I won't, then I'll pull your ticket.
Yeah, we'll pull another.
Four-way test and all that. 6501. Is that you again? Looks like you did.
Another lucky winner. Jeez.
Good luck, Ken.
I haven't won yet.
Well, just the fact that you get pulled.
I don't like being nominated.
There's so many cards here.
That's what I thought. We have to write that.
That looks like, hey, somebody just put 2 decks together so I couldn't win.
Oh.
Did somebody win last week? Feels like a brand new deck. Oh my
It looks
gosh.
like 2 decks.
He got it to his head. Okay, ready for the 4-way test? Here we go. of the things we think, say, and do. First, second,
Fair.
To all concerned,
and fourth.
will be fair to all concerned.
Thank you. Thanks to all the volunteers today. Thank you, Henry, again, for speaking, and everybody's adjourned.
You'll be in the newsletter.
But